Hello, I am Mihaela Nedelcu, and I'm co-leading together with Crettaz the project IP33 on transnational aging. Our research team includes Eva Fernandez, Laura Ravazini, Livia Tomas, and Malika Vis. This project has started from the observation that existing scholarship is usually investigating transnational aging processes with regard to different, often overlapping categories of aging migrants. Yet, only little attention has been paid to similarities and differences of transnational mobilities and practices among these categories. Temporal dynamics with regard to forms of multiple migration or alternate phases of mobility and immobility are generally overlooked. Moreover, transnational aging is prominently studied as a migrant exceptionalism. In our research, we argue for expanding the debate beyond the focus on aging migrants. We conceive transnational aging as a constellation of cross-border processes and flows in which aging populations involve to meet individual needs and aspirations, fulfill social and family roles, and cope with structural constraints in old age. We address research questions along with three lines: transnational mobilities and practices, dynamics of transnational lifestyle and care, resources and strategies in a context of transnational inequalities. On the theoretical level, our original contribution consists in introducing the retirement mobilities approach as a new analytical framework for understanding aging in a world in motion. This approach grounds on the new mobilities paradigm and the transnational studies perspective. Considering aging as a social phenomenon inherently transnationally constituted, this approach allows to demigranticize the study of transnational aging and has methodological implications. This reflects in our research design. We are studying transnational aging for mobile and non-mobile people with and without migration background, resident in Switzerland and abroad. We use a mixed method design for data collection. On the one hand, we have conducted two new surveys. The first one with residents in Switzerland of all nationalities is now completed. The second one with Swiss citizens abroad is ongoing. On the other hand, qualitative data are collected in Spain and in Switzerland. Fieldwork was postponed and adapted due to the COVID-19 situation, but it is now ongoing and 22 semi-structured interviews were already done. Next, I will give the floor to my colleague, Crettaz.
Thank you, Mihaela. And I have the pleasure to present results derived from the survey we carried out last year, where we interviewed about 4,000 individuals aged 55 and over, regardless of their nationalities. And these people were interviewed in 6 languages. Our first set of questions dealt with the reasons to travel abroad, focusing on international mobilities, defined as spending at least one day in another country than Switzerland. As you can see, the main reason that was brought to the forefront is the fact of going on holidays. And you can also see that there's hardly any difference between individuals who have a migration background and those who haven't, having a migration background being defined as being born in another country or having parents who were born in another country. There is then a second group of reasons for these international mobilities, and these reasons are linked with goods and services bought in other countries. The main reason is when people go abroad is to buy cheaper products. They are less expensive than in Switzerland. Then there are reasons linked to the fact of buying products that cannot be found in Switzerland, go to a restaurant, defined as one of the main aims of the trip, and also the fact of receiving healthcare or dental care. And as you can see in this category, the difference between those who have a migration background and the others are larger. It is mainly those who have a migration background who mention the fact that products are cheaper abroad, going to a restaurant, dental care abroad, and byproducts not found in Switzerland. And finally, there's a group of reasons that are associated with visiting children, grandchildren, friends, other relatives, and even taking care of them. And as you can see, that's the group of reasons where the difference between those who have a migration background and the others is largest, as one would expect. We then had a set of questions that dealt with the intention to spend one's retirement in another country, or the rest of the retirement years in another countries for those who are already retired. And one of the striking findings was that even among those who do not have a migration background, only half of them do not consider moving to another country, meaning that the other half either envisage to live in Switzerland and in another country, so to go back and forth between two countries, and a bit less than 30% can even think about living in another country. Among people who have a migration background, the share not considering living in another country than Switzerland is, as one would expect, even smaller, and smaller than 30%. But for both groups, it is striking that many, if not most people, think about spending part or all of their retirement in another country. In terms of the potential countries, of the countries envisaged, there are differences between the two groups. Those who have a migration background often indicate the countries that are most common countries of origin among migrants who live in Switzerland, that is, Southern European countries like Italy, Spain, Portugal, as well as the Balkans, and as well as France and Germany. Whereas individuals who haven't a migration background consider the neighboring countries of Switzerland, that is France, Italy, Germany, and Austria, Spain, Portugal, and Thailand. A third set of questions in our questionnaire dealt with what we call transnational lifestyle. That is the fact of residing in Switzerland, but spending at least 3 months in another country every year. This can be done at once or during several shorter stays. And the reasons for this transnational lifestyle are diverse, but the main one is the fact of owning a house or an apartment in another country. And in this regard, there's hardly any difference between those who have a migration background and those who haven't. Then we find a set of reasons where there's almost no difference between the two groups. That's the fact of maintaining living standards, benefiting from a climate that's good for the health, and going to cultural events. Then there are two reasons where the difference are more marked, where for a climate that's better suited for leisure activities, this is an opinion expressed more often by those who haven't a migration background. On the contrary, saying that Switzerland is too expensive is mentioned more often by those who have a migration background. And finally, as one would expect, reasons linked to friends, to family, or to a country of origins are mainly, and in some cases almost exclusively, mentioned by people who have a migration background. Of course, these results are preliminary findings, and we need to further investigate them, notably in terms of explanatory factors. This will maybe mainly done in the articles that you find here in the rubric to be submitted. Most of these papers deal with the issue of the factors that explains these various mobility patterns. And we thank you warmly for your attention.